Manchester United enter a bidding war for Victor Osimhen that could be absolutely huge. We've also got an update on who is leaving and the fact that David De Gea will not be leaving. We'll be talking about that as well. Also, the latest on the centre-back situation and where Erik ten Hag stands on certain players, as well as a very interesting Gary Neville tweet this morning. Look, I'm late because of this. I can't speak. I've been crying in the bathroom. He's called me out on Twitter, and I don't know whether I will answer to that. I mean, look, we're a community. If people want me to respond to it, I've responded to it in a jokey way on Twitter. If you want the proper answer, I might do it on this show. Why not? I'm not scared. But ultimately, what I did want to talk about, what Gary Neville said on Twitter today, was he's highlighted the 4 positions Manchester United need to look at. And he says goalkeeper, right back, centre-back and centre-forward. We'll talk about that because ultimately that's what we do here. It's about a community. It's about talking about the club we love. It's about everybody getting a voice. If that's the problem to some people, well, maybe they should take their blinkered glasses off and realise they live in an elitist world where it's mates rates and they are stopping other people having a voice because they're scared. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. Let's get into the latest Manchester United news. So look, we're going to start off with Victor Osimhen. This is coming in from Europe. PSG want Victor Osimhen. Manchester United are interested in Victor Osimhen. And of course, we know that Chelsea will enter the race. €150 million bid, rumoured to be going in from PSG, which is about £133 million. Now, at that price, I think Manchester United step out of the deal. I really do. And I think that, look, ultimately, I'll tell you what Gary said on Twitter in a minute, and I'll answer it in a minute if people want me to answer it, because I've got a very, very succinct answer about the real story of this industry. And if people are interested in it, I'll give it. And there's not really anywhere to hide for people like that and people work in this industry, because there's a lot of things that professionally I've kept quiet about because I just think, what's the point in getting involved in it? But ultimately, we might be getting to the point where it's time to actually start putting a few home truths out there, and these people who hide behind their image, maybe they get exposed. Maybe we will talk about that in a few minutes, or maybe we'll stay professional and just say at the end of the day, you know, let them crack on. We'll see. But I want to talk about Man United news. So let's talk about Victor Osimhen. €150 million for Manchester United to get into this transfer race. It's too expensive, I would say that, and obviously, you know, part of you wants to go, it's just a paper story, but part of you wants to go, well, it's PSG, and PSG have got the power and the wealth to go and do something like that. So, but what also I found interesting, and the first thing that came into my head was PSG Qatar, Manchester United Al Thani Qatar. Like, if we are to have this relationship with Al Thani, and he is to take over this football club, then we cannot be in a situation where we have PSG buying our number one target to go and play in a farmers league effectively. And all due respect to France, you know, but PSG never win the Champions League and no one ever talks about your domestic league. So I just think that, look, Qatar, PSG, if they're going to bid and try and sign Victor Osimhen, at what point do you not have the conversation if you're Al Thani and say, hold on a minute, we're sort of pissing in the same pool here. Man United, best league in the world, probably going to have a better chance of winning the Champions League, to be honest, because they play in a more competitive league. We'll have Osimhen. So, you know, yes, on one hand, PSG have got the ability and the wealth to blow everybody out the water when it comes to signing Victor Osimhen, and maybe they could bid €150 million. But remember who owns them, and remember who might own Manchester United in the summer as well. I think that if we want to compete with Manchester City and we are owned by Al Thani, there's got to be a conversation with PSG where we go, let's not compete against each other for the same things we need because we weaken each other. You know, PSG have had 10 years to try and win the Champions League and they've not done it. Manchester United, if we get bought by Al Thani, you know, it's a new start. You don't want to be competing with basically people who know each other. Like, I'm not saying that we're owned by the same people, but, you know, Qatar wealth, Al Thani will know the people who own PSG. You know, it's obvious the links are there. So I just think that maybe, you know, I don't want that to happen. I mean, by all means, PSG can continue to try and win the Champions League, but really, if if Man United want Osimhen and PSG want Osimhen, it should be coming to Man United, because you've had 10 years, lads, at PSG, and also we're playing in a better league. So, is the bid official, says Prishansu? I don't think it's official yet, because the season's still going, and Napoli are a very, very, very hard buyer to deal with. But obviously Napoli are out of the Champions League. I think that helps this deal move through quicker, and I think it lowers the price down. But competition, there will be a bidding war. That's what I'm trying to say. And we know that Chelsea will go hard in this, but I don't think Chelsea are in the strongest position in the world with not having Champions League football and all the money they've spent already. I think Manchester United have to position themselves really well for Victor Osimhen. And I think if PSG, what I'm trying to say is if PSG are the competitor for Manchester United, and we did get bought by Al Thani, then we need to be having conversations with them about, who it suits better. You can't be competing for the same players. Kartik, welcome to Members Club. Dag, welcome to Members Club. I did say to Gary that it's a shame he's so short-sighted. Could have been an opportunity to get his channel decent exposure, as it has a third of the subs of United Stand, says Glenny Boy. We'll talk about that in a minute if people want to talk about it. I want to get through the news first. So yeah, as I say, I think also imagine De Jong, imagine Kim Min-jae. Are we going to compete with PSG for Kim Min-jae, De Jong, and Osimhen? It's silly if we're owned by Al Thani. Now, if we're owned by Sir Jim, they'll destroy us. Of course they will. Robert McCormack says £150 million for a player who's plays half a season. Well, look, Osimhen's injury issues are overstated. A lot of his injuries are cheekbone, shoulder injuries. He doesn't actually pick up an inordinate amount of leg injuries. So I'm not concerned about Victor Osimhen's injury issues. Robert's obviously a big fan of Harry Kane. I was going to bring that in anyway. Ultimately, do you want to pay £100 million for Harry Kane, who is 30, has never won anything, and nobody else wants? Or do you want to go for Victor Osimhen, that is younger, has a higher ceiling, I believe, but a lot of people want? And I'm not saying one or the other is right or wrong, and obviously Robert's right. Is there injury concerns about Osimhen? Has he done it in the Premier League? So look, I don't think that Jacob says he'd go with neither. I still think Højlund is a very intriguing option. He's more of a risk, but I still think Højlund of Atalanta is a very interesting option. But obviously we do need a striker. You can't be in the situation that we're in at the moment where you're reliant on Weghorst or Rashford. Hi Mark, is Victor's injury as bad as people are quoting? I don't even see any muscle injuries legs-wise. Exactly, Dasbo, I just said that. It's not something that massively concerns me in relation to Victor Osimhen, but obviously, there are other options out there. I think Manchester United will opt for Harry Kane, but I think, as I've said many a time before, that in itself offers up its own problems. So, I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens with that. Let's move on to some other stories. This is coming in from Laurie Whitwell with The Athletic. Eric Ten Hag has accepted that new signings in the goalkeeping department can wait, with a centre-forward being the priority and a midfielder a close second this transfer window. And this is what I was talking about last night. And a lot of people weren't watching live last night because they were watching the Arsenal game. That's fine. But we had quite a good debate last night on the show, if you missed it, about the issues that Manchester United will face in this transfer window. I'm not saying Laurie Whitwell watches the show, but his piece in The Athletic this morning is like an echo chamber, because everything he talks about this morning is what we spoke about last night. Now, he probably wrote that article before last night. I'm not saying that Laurie Whitwell watches the show. What I am saying is that he's obviously intelligent enough to assess the issues that we have issued, that we evidenced last night, that this story yesterday morning that everybody's peddling about 15 players being sold and 10 players coming in is nonsense. And unfortunately, they play on your emotions. You're emotional after a devastating loss on Thursday night. They need you back on side, so they play with you. You're vulnerable. They go, we're going to get rid of loads of players and we're going to buy a load of players. And all it is just medicine. It's medicine that temporarily makes you feel better. And then when the medicine wears off, you're not as angry as you were before. You're being played. You're being manipulated. Because this morning, we're waking up to the reality that we spoke about last night. United's record in sales is terrible. We're not very good at selling. So clearing out loads of players to buy loads of players is impossible. It's mission impossible because we're rubbish at it. So all you've been done yesterday is spun. You've been spun by, we're going to sell all these players and we're going to buy all these players. We can't do it. We can't do it. You can't sell Sancho. He's on 300 grand a week and he costs 75 million pounds. You can't sell that asset. You probably can't do it with Maguire. He's on 200 grand a week and they'll want 40 million. Where are you going to get that from? You can't sell Martial. He's on 200 grand a week and he's injury prone. United can't sell these players. But they can tell you, well, I'm not saying Man United are telling you, but you can put stories out on a Friday morning to get loads of clicks to manipulate United fans, and make your boss happy in the press house. It's a load of nonsense, and we called it for what it is. It's interesting what Laurie Whitwell's saying, because he's saying that, well, look, Erik ten Hag is not prioritising a new goalkeeper because his priority is a striker and a midfielder. Why is that? Limited budget. I'm sure he probably would like to go and buy Costa from Portugal or another goalkeeper like David Raya, but he hasn't got the funds to do it. And this is what I mean about yesterday morning. It's Lollipop Lane again. We've suddenly got a budget of £500 million. Well, we haven't. He's got to buy a striker and a midfielder as a necessity. Not a need to have, not a nice to have, not a would improvers. All these people going, get rid of De Gea, get rid of Maguire, get rid of this, get rid of that. We've got to buy a striker and we've got to buy a midfielder. What's left after that to go and get your dream goalkeeper? There won't be a lot left because we can't generate the funds to generate that money to do that. He also goes on to say that Manchester United, 2 clubs have approached Manchester United to sign Dean Henderson, and all parties would prefer a sale instead of Henderson being back up to De Gea, although no firm decisions have been yet made. Look, I think Erik ten Hag has done a fantastic job at Manchester United, of which there is absolutely no doubt about that, and I think we can all agree on that. However, if, and this is a big if, and I do not think it will happen, but if he was to keep Dean Henderson at Manchester United as the backup to David De Gea, that would be massively, massively naive by Erik ten Hag. Dean Henderson, like him or not, believes, he's a little bit like Maguire personality-wise. He really believes he is brilliant. And when you've got somebody like that, you'll always get in the press stories. Now, we've had a lot from Maguire this year. He's been the bench player, and yet we still hear, I've got nothing to prove. I'm a really good, influential player. Do you want Dean Henderson sat on the bench behind David De Gea? No, because the noise is always going to be there. Dean Henderson, to his credit, needs to play number 1. You cannot have that personality on the bench because they're always talking themselves up because that's their personality. I don't think Harry Maguire can be a bench player because he's always talking himself up. It's his personality. It's like Jay from The In-Betweeners, if you've ever watched it. I'm not criticising those personalities, but they're full of themselves. And they can't be on the bench because if you ever saw the In-Betweeners episode when Jay can't be a model and Simon can, he's constantly going, it's because I've been called up by Calvin Klein and this, that and the other. They can't deal with second place. Whether they're good enough for first place doesn't matter. It's their mentality. So keeping Dean Henderson doesn't make any sense because it wouldn't work. So I think moving Dean Henderson on is really important, but obviously no decision has been made yet. But I think unless he's going to be Man United's number 1, and I don't think, look, sell De Gea by all means, let De Gea go by all means, but if Dean Henderson's the replacement, I can't speak on that. He is nowhere near, in my opinion, ready or good enough to be, Manchester United's number 1. So you've got to sell him, and there's a bit of money to be made there. But we spoke about, look, last night's show was so good, you should watch it, because especially the last half an hour, it was really, really good, talking about personalities and the issues at the club. So check it out. I don't want to go over that. It's a news show. And a lot of people want me to respond to Gary, which I'm sort of, I don't know. The thing is, if I speak, I won't shut up about it. So I'm sort of like, I don't know whether I should or not. Magnon at AC Milan is a very good goalkeeper, Simone. We've been talking about him for a long time. The interesting thing about the goalkeeper thing, I'll talk about that in a minute, because Gary Neville has actually said, he basically has said he doesn't want De Gea at the club, which is quite interesting considering how loyal he was to Solskjaer, a legend of the club, and he's been pretty loyal to Maguire, but David De Gea, who he played with and has been at the club for 10 years, he's basically saying get rid of him. It's funny how these loyalties work sometimes, isn't it? I don't know what it is that defines that you can be ridiculously loyal to one person but not to another legend, but it's all about opinion. Also, Athletic, Laurie Whitwell saying the future of both Harry Maguire and Victor Lindelof will be discussed, with neither fully matching how Erik ten Hag views a centre-back. Well, look, will we get rid of both Lindelof and Maguire? I don't think so. Should both of them want to leave? Yes. Will both of them leave? I don't think so. Who do I think will stay? The least ambitious player who is comfy, Maguire. I don't think Maguire will go. I think Maguire will go into every meeting saying, I don't want to go. And it will make. And you can't sell a player who's on 200 grand a week with 3 years left on his deal and 40 million value. Lindelof, people will be queuing up to buy Lindelof because he'll cost about 20 million. He's on about 80 grand a week. Lindelof will be sold because he will, and he's probably ambitious. Maguire's harder to sell than Lindelof. So who would I keep? I personally think Victor Lindelof's the perfect centre-back for the bench because he's never going to start, but he's capable of coming in and doing a job. I don't think Maguire's a bench centre-back. He's a limited centre-back. He's good in the air, he's slow. That's not somebody who can come on. What you want on your bench is John O'Shea. What you want on your bench is Wes Brown. You want those types of defenders who can play right back, centre back. They're mobile, left back in the case of John O'Shea. You want that type of player on your bench. Bench players, to me, if they're a jack of all trades, brilliant. If they can play multiple positions, brilliant. And if they can do it well, but more importantly, are they mentally adaptable? Can they play numerous jobs? Can they play as a high-line centre-back or can they play as a sweeper? Can they go and win the ball in the air but also play out from the back? You look at John O'Shea and Wes Brown, they were superb players that played a lot of first-team football. I mean, Wes Brown started the Champions League final in 2008 at right-back, but they can play multiple positions. Maguire, to his credit, I would say is more of a starting centre-back than a bench centre-back. He's got to be at the right club to start, but he's a very one-dimensional centre-back. He's an old-school centre-back. He's a Tony Adams type. He's physical, he's good in the air, he can pass out from the back reasonably, and he works well in a system that plays quite deep, like the Arsenal old back four used to. He's not a bench centre-back that if Martinez gets injured, you can slot him in left-sided centre-back, or if Varane gets injured, you can slot him in at the right and keep playing the same way. You have to adapt to Maguire, whereas I think Lindelof's better at adapting to the way we play. So Maguire's got to go for me, but I think Lindelof's more likely to go, and I think he's. I think that's a problem for De Gea. I think that's a problem for Maguire. I think it's a problem for Ten Hag because the positive is if Lindelof goes and you replace him with Kim Min-jae or someone like that, Maguire becomes fourth choice centre back. A very expensive one, but he does. I mean, but I can't see us getting rid of two centre backs. Ideally, I'd keep Lindelof, but we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. Interesting, actually. There was Gary Neville this morning was doing a bit of a Q&A on Twitter, and I'm sure people want me to react to what he said about me. But first of all, I want to talk about news. He was asked about what are the priorities for Manchester United this summer. He said goalkeeper, right back, centre back, and striker. He didn't name any names, but look, at the end of the day, if Paul Parker or Nicky Butt or Robin van Persie said the same, I'd still bring it into a news show. If you're a public pundit as well, I think it's interesting to discuss. I can't speak. I can't believe what's gone on at Man United for the last 15 years. It seems to me only fans realise our midfield is the place where games are won and lost. And continually, it's something that the club and also continually on Sky, BT, wherever you want to go, they never really talk about the midfield. And I don't really understand why, especially when they've played the game. They should know the oldest cliche in football is that games are won and lost in the midfield. Now, if we listen to Gary or any other pundit, let's buy a goalkeeper, a right back, a centre back and a striker, we're going to be a really hard team to watch next season because games are won and lost in the midfield. So, basically wants to strengthen 3 defensive areas and a goal scorer. I mean, you could say, no wonder he struggled at Valencia. That's a bit harsh. But reality is, priorities in that team, I think we can universally agree, a striker and centre midfielder. Ten Hag's got it right. Your striker and centre midfield are way up. If your list for targets, goalkeeper, right back, centre backs probably there, goalkeeper and right back are there, but striker and midfield are right up there. So I found it quite interesting that he didn't mention midfield. People can say, maybe he mistyped and put centre back instead of centre midfield, but I don't know how right back ended up on there either. We don't need to buy a right back. Am I in the minority here? I don't think we need to buy a right back. I think it's interesting if Ten Hag wants to buy one, but it's almost a little unique angle that the manager's got. I don't think, as a fan base, we think we need a right back. Now, the manager might think it, and that's absolutely fine, and Gary Neville might think it, and that's absolutely fine. But I look at Wan-Bissaka and Dalot, and I also know that Ten Hag wants a midfielder and a centre forward. Whereas in the case of Gary, he wants a right back over a midfielder, which I just don't understand. But I think Wan-Bissaka and Dalot do complement each other really well. And I think we've got, in the right back area, I actually think we're as strong as Arsenal, who are in a title race. You know, I think Ben White and Tomiyasu, compared to Wan-Bissaka and Dalot, I think we've got better depth. So I'm all for improving, but I don't think we're weak in that area. Centre-back, I agree we need one. We desperately need a midfielder. I don't know why you would admit that. As for the goalkeeper, well, look, I'm a little bit surprised by not just Gary, but Roy Keane, Paul Scholes, and numerous others. And look, I don't know whether there's a story behind this, but I've never seen, and it's been going on for years, they don't seem to want to protect David De Gea. They don't. And the thing is, the thing I find weird is that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer doesn't have a British passport, and neither does David De Gea, so you can't use that argument. We saw Solskjaer in charge of United. It was like having a crap Sam Allardyce at times. It was not Manchester United, and yet insistent on national TV. I'm not going to say anything about him. He's a mate. He's a mate. He's a mate. David De Gea has a terrible game on Thursday. Yeah, get rid of him. Get rid of him. And yet he is a legend of the club. It's just I don't want to use the word hypocrisy, but confusion is the word I don't understand how a goalkeeper that's had a very good season overall in doing his job, who had a terrible game on Thursday, and we have to acknowledge it, gets thrown under the bus, not only by some fans and the media, but by the majority of ex-players. They throw David De Gea under the bus every time they can. And I often think, well, do they know something? Have they got WhatsApp groups and they know something bad about De Gea? But then I think, well, no, they've done this about Bruno, and they've done this about Martial, and I don't get it. I don't get what it is in them that cannot give the same support that they would do for Rashford or Solskjaer or Maguire. It's weird. But, you know, if you are David De Gea out, well, you know, I think a lot of the ex-players are on your side with it. John O'Shea played a crawl across the back, midfield striker, right wing and goalkeeper. I seen Lindelof in a similar mould at centre-back, right-back and CDM, and walks into most Premier League teams, says Acid. Thanks very much for your super chat, Acid. Completely agree with you. I completely agree with you about Lindelof. I would love Lindelof to be staying at Manchester United, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see how that develops. But look, for me, the priorities, I've said it and I'll say it again and I'll do it in order. You've got to buy a striker. You have to bring in somebody who can put a ball in the back of the net. But more importantly, you've got to play somebody that actually can play each week. And I think the problem that we have is that we don't have a striker that can play every week. So you've got to bring a striker in. And you've got to bring a midfielder in. Look, striker and midfield are, without shadow of a doubt, the biggest issues in that team, because Casemiro gets injured, you're screwed. Bruno Fernandes gets suspended, you're screwed. So you've got two players, two starting midfielders, that when they're out of the team, as an individual, the whole team suffers. So you've got to bring another midfielder in. I think you've got to bring two in, really, but you've definitely got to bring one in. You've got to bring a striker in, because we haven't really got one. So those two positions are absolutely essential. I think centre-back's the third priority, but at least you have got Martinez, Varane, Luke Shaw, Lindelof. You know, we're a bit unlucky with three of them basically having been injured recently. But, you know, we do need a centre-back, but we do have a lot of options there if everybody's fit. But you've got to bring a centre-back in. For me, goalkeeper's not a priority, because if you're replacing De Gea, you do need to go and get the best. I'm not replacing De Gea with bloody Dean Henderson, and I'm not replacing De Gea with, you know, Lafont as a starter. Like, if you're replacing De Gea, make sure you go and get me the best goalkeeper you can get. And I don't think we've got the funds for it, and I don't think it's the priority at the moment, unless things change around the ownership. I personally wouldn't bother with a right back. My priorities would be striker, two midfielders, centre back. That's my summer done. I personally don't think we need a right back. If Ten Hag does, I'll back him. Same with the goalkeeper. But for me, my priorities are striker, two midfielders, centre back. That's where I'd spend my money, because I think next season you've just strengthened your spine massively. I think that's where I would go. Mark, I played the game. You played the game. Has your United Stand colleagues played the game? Says Black Wolf. Look. I don't know. I don't know whether I want to jump into this, but it's a Saturday morning. I woke up this morning and my phone was popping off, and one of my best mates says, you should reply to Gary Neville with this. And I thought, this is never good if he's telling me to reply to Gary Neville. And I thought, okay. So I logged onto Twitter, and basically Gary Neville did a Q&A this morning, and he was asked about whether Mark Goldbridge would ever go on the overlap, and he just replied, no. It's interesting because I did get invited on the overlap last year, and I said no myself. So I've already been invited, Gary, so I said no first. But the reason I said no was nothing to do with Gary Neville. It was to do with one of the people they have on the show who, to be honest, has tried to ruin my career for the last 7 years. And every time I see him in real life, he never says anything to me. So it's very difficult when somebody is sticking so many knives in your back. And then when you see them face to face, they don't dare say anything to you. I'm not somebody who's up for massively grabbing hold of somebody and having a confrontation. So when someone stabs me in the back, I expect them to say something to my face, and they never do. So I just said, no, it's uncomfortable sitting with someone like that. But, over the last few months, I've thought, more and more, I disagree with a lot of the things that get said on that programme, and specifically from Gary. So I was like, well, ultimately, we've got a massive platform. They've got a massive platform. Ultimately, whether you like me or you like Gary, it doesn't really matter. I think it would be a good conversation point because I think, the calling out of Bruno was bang out of order. And I think there's a conversation to be had there. But no, it gets swept under the carpet. I think, saying you want to sell De Gea but keep Solskjaer in a job when he was doing crap, I think it's a conversation point. And he probably could come at me with a few things. I think it would be very interesting. We only live once. We only have one life. And we do work in a space where ultimately people watch what we do. They might not like us, like I say, but they watch what we do. So it's it's stupid, but, imagine Fury Usyk. Everyone wants that to happen because, and on a very Poundland level, I think a lot of people would like to see that sort of conversation take place, whether it's on the United Stand or on the overlap. So a flat no, to me, I don't understand it. I have called him out on Twitter. He's more than welcome to call me out on Twitter, which he's sort of done today. But ultimately, I don't hold any personal issue with him. He's a legend of Manchester United. I wind people up on social media and have been doing it for years. I think I'm a good person. Everybody I meet, I get on with. After every show, I take the time. People are lining up. People might say it's sad for a photo. I don't charge them a fiver. I could be in backstage having a drink with everybody after being on stage for 2 hours. I line up and do a photo. I do my charity stream every year. I've raised over 100 grand. I shouldn't have to blow my own trumpet, but every brand we ever deal with says you're professional. We really like you. Yes, I have an ability to wind people up, but that's because I think you have to delve in and have the real conversations. What I find sad is that yet again in this industry, and I'm not just pointing at Gary Neville for this, because I know what goes on, yet again in this industry, we face a world which none of us wants to be in, and yet I'm the villain for it. Suppression. You've got people today backing Neville going, oh yeah, Goldbridge is a Forest fan, he's got no knowledge, good one, Gary. And I'm like, you are behaving like rats chasing the Pied Piper. You are being suppressed. Because ultimately, you might not like what I and the United Stand does, but ultimately, we actually do represent the lower class. We actually do represent the people punching above their weight. We actually do represent the people trying to have their voice heard. And actually, they represent the champagne socialists. Oh, we're all about the people, but we'll close the door on certain people. We don't want that conversation. We don't want to put ourselves in a position where we might get exposed, or we're not confident enough to put ourselves in a position where we can have a debate. So what we'll do is we'll close the door to absolutely anybody who could come into this room and have a proper debate, and we will maintain the elitism in our group, because we'll all look after each other here. And that's producers, that's mainstream media. That's just the way it's been from the first day I did this. This is what it's always been. And the only people from my space who end up in there are the backstabbers and the smilers who will bend over backwards and won't ask those questions anyway. So look, ultimately, I respect the fact that I'm not going to get asked to do anything with Gary Neville, and I'm definitely not going to start begging for it, because that was not the point. I don't need to beg for it. We've got the biggest football fan community out there. We might not have in 6 months, we might not have in a year, but we do now. It was a simple, this would be good content. That's what all it was. And obviously it's a no. Now the no is probably because he's heard stuff from people who lie about me for the last 7 years, who are jealous, bitter, I don't know. But you know when people say, in that tweet it said, you should have a debate with Goldbridge because he's got good football knowledge. The amount of replies that said, he's not got football knowledge, Gary knows more than him. I was like, that's really sad. I think that's really sad because ultimately those people, again, are acting like the peasants. They're acting like the underclass. They're acting like King Gary and co are better than us. And, you know, Goldbridge is just a peasant like us and shouldn't be listened to. Ultimately, is that, you know, whether you like me and whether you like the United Stand is irrelevant. What's more important? People like us having a voice or people like us being suppressed? And to see people on social media championing the fact that we're being suppressed, it's really sad. And that's why you understand that dictatorships actually exist. And all these people talking about, oh, you know, I'm somebody for the people. How can you be somebody for the people? And I'm talking in general here, but how can you be somebody for the people who closes the door on people you've never met and makes your mind up on people you've never met to protect your own position? That's fear. That's fear. And I just think there's a massive hypocrisy in this space, and I've been saying it for years. I don't get asked to do things because people are scared of what we are. And we can talk about, oh, you know, you can't say stuff like that. Look, not everybody who's poor comes from Manchester or London. I came from, we didn't have a lot of money. When I used to go to school, I used to have to wear the same pair of trousers all week. I'd be sponging them down when they were muddy from football. I used to get up 6 days a week and cycle for 3 miles with a paper round to earn money to pay for my dinner money. People don't understand that about me. People think, oh, he's a Tory. He went to university. I left school with 3 shitty GCSEs. I came from an area where nobody does this sort of thing. I don't preach it because I don't need to. I know my journey, and I also know the journey that everybody else has. And I know that people have it a lot harder than I do, all around the world, all around this country. But don't talk to me about equality and fairness, because ultimately, I think what we've built here and what we are building here is actually about that. It's about having a voice. It's about, you know, we have broken through into something that was impenetrable. When I grew up, it was you were fed Match of the Day and a bit of Sky Sports. Look at it now, and we've been at the forefront of that, smashing through the barriers. That's what we do. That's why they don't like it. But I tell you what, it's never personal. I've got no issue with anybody. All I want to do is make great content. I don't care if people think we've got crap football knowledge. I don't care if people think we're negative. They don't watch the show. What's negative about backing David De Gea? And apparently that's negative now. You know, all I want to do is discuss and debate football. We'll talk anything. We'll talk ownership. We'll talk Mason Greenwood. We will do it, and we've always done it, and that's what we do. If people don't want to talk to us, absolutely fine. But we won't stop banging on the door. In fact, we'll start kicking on the door, because you can't just slam your door in the face of people because you think you're better than them. And that's basically what this is all about. Tweet about your politics, tweet about your opinions, but we'll keep kicking at the door because that's what we do. And if people don't like it, that's fine. But don't come at me with Forest fan shit or Gary's a legend or Lineker's a legend or Roy's a legend when actually it's champagne socialism. They are the rich elite closing the door on people like us because they're scared of the conversation. And that's my perception. It's fear. So, you know, if you agree with it or you don't agree with it, the proper message is here. We want to talk about stuff. We want to be a voice for everybody, but we're not speaking to you. And that's the message. Whereas for us, we've never been like that. And I think that's the way it should be. If someone says something shit about Man United, we'll call it out. If someone says good about Man United, we'll call it out. Look at the ownership. I find it hilarious how some ex-players of Manchester United have spent the last 10 years gobbing off about certain rights, and yet none of them are saying anything about Qatar. And yet Qatar, actually, if you listen to what they've been saying for the last 10 years, a Qatar ownership model goes against a lot of what they say. But why are they all being quiet? Oh, is it because you might be involved at some point? A bit of money. Oh, suddenly your morals are out the window. Now, look, interestingly, we speak about the Qatar ownership model and we say openly, honestly, whether it's mercenary or not, it's the best for Manchester United. But these people, listen to what they've said over the last 10 years. No, this shouldn't, I believe in this, I believe in that, I believe in this, I believe in that. They're all deadly quiet at the moment because they're all, there might be an angle for me. We can kick on the door. We can talk the truth. I really want an athletic, strong, fast midfielder who can drive forward with the ball. Think Yaya in his day. Don't know who that is, though, says Rory. I'd love somebody like Yaya Toure at Manchester United. As much as he was a Manchester City player, I think he was great. Very honest and real show. Look, you're always going to get critics. You're always going to get people who don't like what we do. But the thing I find hilarious is all these people reacting to the tweet that Gary put out today, burying me and the United stand, is hilarious. Because you may as well be a rat chasing the Pied Piper. Because you talk about we're the suppressed. And if you want to champion that, that's fine. But don't act like me talking about Jamie Carragher or Gary Neville or Gary Lineker or anything like that is begging. Trust me, we do all right. We've got a huge community. We don't need that. The people who go on that show, they need it. They'll kiss arse because they need it. And most of the people who go on that show, I could tell you a few stories. Backstabbers. I could expose them if I want to. Not interested in doing that. That's unprofessional. That's cowardly. I'm not in for that. Ultimately, we are here to talk about football and build a community, and that's what we've done, and we've done a very good job of it. I just think we're only here once. We're only here for a good time. Look, there's probably people out there that would love to see Gary Neville destroy me, absolutely destroy me. Somebody messaged me and said you may as well just call him out for a charity boxing match. Well, he wouldn't do that either. I don't think my wife would let me do that either. But I'm sure a lot of people would. I'm sure a lot of people would love to watch that, and there'll be people going, Gary would bury you, mate. He gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning and goes on a treadmill. Well, I don't think that would happen, but it wouldn't happen anyway because fear. But fear is a word that I think that people get very scared of. Look, I'm terrified of going in the sea. I won't go in the sea. That's fear. I will not go in the sea beyond knee heights, even in Wales, because I still think there might be a stray shark that's gone wrong and go, there's lunch. I'm terrified of sharks. There are things I'm scared about. Fear is, people get scared of being called scared. But look, trust me, this industry is a horrible place. It's full of massive egos and people need to protect themselves. God, in some ways it is a little bit like boxing. But when you're in an industry where it's meant to be saying how it is. Look, most of these shows you watch, even on YouTube, I don't wear an earpiece. I only wear an earpiece when I've got to listen to a game at 3 o'clock because it's not on the bloody telly. I don't wear an earpiece and I don't take notes. You know me, I'll go live with 4 pints in me. They won't go live with 4 pints in them. They're terrified of saying the wrong thing. They've got an earpiece in because they've got people telling them what to do. Trust me, I've been on mainstream, I've been on certain YouTube shows. You're sat there with headphones on. I'm like, why am I wearing headphones when I've got 4 people to talk to? I don't need headphones. I hate them. I can hear your voice. No, you need the headphones so you know what topic we're going to talk about. Oh, I've just given a trade secret away. How do you think a lot of these shows clip up little bits? How do you think they do it? Why do you think you watch a show on YouTube or on mainstream and then an hour later they've got really good 5-minute segments that go out for viral clips? How do you think that happens? Somebody in their ear is going, right, now let's talk about who is the best striker in the Premier League. Now let's talk about who the biggest flop is. Start with you. Okay, that's what happens. That's what they're doing. It's so scripted. They've got producers, runners who are searching the internet for viral clips and then writing it down for the Saturday show. That's why they don't want this conversation, because I could walk into it and you could walk into it. I don't need a run sheet. I don't need a script. I'm going to go and sit there and they're going to ask me about a question and you're going to get an honest answer. And that terrifies them. That terrifies them. Gary, why did you say Bruno Fernandes has to come off against Liverpool? Where's the answer? Still haven't got the answer. Why shouldn't we have the answer? Oh, I don't like that Goldbridge. He's an idiot. He's a Forest fan. What? Because I want to ask a question. This is something that you said. And we want the answer to it. There might be a really good answer. You might be say, Oh, I'm sorry. It was the heat of the moment. We're losing to Liverpool. I was angry. I'm sorry. I respect that. That's absolutely fine. Or he might go, no, I genuinely think he wanted to come off. I've got the information that he wanted to come off. I was told it by Steve McLaren. Obviously, that won't be the case. But, like, you know, I don't know. It is what it is. Look, we asked. We put it out there. It would have been good content. Respect the fact that he hates me. Don't really understand it. We've never met. Why do you think he hates me? That's what somebody said. Because there's a few people who have spread lies, basically. We've never met. You can't dislike somebody you've never met. I can't dislike Piers Morgan just because he acts like a prat on Twitter. I've never met him. It might be a complete act. He might be hyping it up. He might be just a wind-up merchant. I can't hate somebody I've never met. It's ridiculous. What a community you've built. In some watch-alongs, you exceed 60,000 live viewers, much more than capacity of most stadiums, says Luke. Thank you very much. Don't agree with a lot said on here, but I respect your opinions and your passion for United. We're United. The clue is in the name. Keep it up, says James. Thank you very much. You're not meant to agree, James. This is the whole point. I've always said this for 7 years. If you disagree with me, that's even better because it generates your brain cells to start thinking for yourself, which is what the message should always be. It might be slow sports news, but look at the table more often than not. Those with the most points score a similar number of goals. We need more goals, says Glennie. We do. Welcome, Nathan, to the Members Club. Proud of you, Mark. We may have different opinions, but we're really thankful to you. Give us a platform to share opinions. 5-month member. Thanks, Nico. And Maguire is their mate. They blamed Lindelof, Bruno, De Gea, even Ronaldo for losses, but not Maguire. Ollie consistently played him. Could be the factor, says Sarvish. Well, look, I will never, ever, 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 and you make a great point here, and this is the great thing about not being scripted. You make a great point here. I never would have. This is why I love the community, because you generate the conversation that it's impossible for me to script. I'll never, ever, ever understand. Thanks for gifting a membership, Paul. And Volatile says, I was at a charity match, met Danny Webber and Luke Chadwick, top lads. Wes Brown was supposed to be there, but no show. Some care, some don't, says Vola. Never meet your heroes, mate. I mean, I met Wes Brown. Absolutely fantastic. I really liked him. You know, really, but I only met him once. Might caught him on a good day, on a bad day. I do like Wes Brown. But look, I'll never understand how ex-players of United, apart from Roy Keane, who would never do it, ex-players of United went in on Ronaldo at the start of the season. I've never understood that. He made your career relevant at times. And what I mean by that is we had some good players, but you take Ronaldo out of that team in 2008, we don't win what we're doing. I'll never understand why certain ex-players threw Ronaldo under the bus. And yet, Solskjaer and Maguire, absolutely fine. Mates rates, probably. I don't know. You know, Sheringham and Cole didn't get on well, did they? I don't know. I don't understand it. But, you know, it's one rule for one and one rule for the other. And you know what that is? It's elitism. And that's what I'm talking about here. I don't think bullying's the right word, but suppression is something I've hated. I've been suppressed all my life. And I'm sure some of you are in a lot worse way. And I just don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like suppression, and I don't like fear, and I don't like people who slam the door in your face when they've never met you because they listen to somebody else. I'd always urge people, even if your best mate says that person's a knobhead, you might want to speak to that person. Don't be driven by other people. Have your own mind, which is what it should always be about. Thanks everyone for watching. I could go on and on about this, and actually it's meant to be a morning show. Regarding transfers, I'd like Kessie or Javi, Olmo for backup, and Vlahovic or Ramos with Højlund, Varane as a backup, and Tomori thought. Acid, I think that's probably one of the best comments we've had in ages. I'd love Tomori. Kessie, I think, is an interesting profile. Dani Olmo is an interesting player as well. And I think Ramos or Vlahovic are really good as well. You know, look, there's lots of options out there. But ultimately, it comes down to who owns Manchester United, doesn't it? And if it's the Glazers, I think we're in for a difficult summer. But it's funny. It's well worth watching last night's show from about 20 minutes in, because everything that's coming out this morning, we predicted last night. Take care, everyone. There is an 8 o'clock show tonight. I'm not on TalkSport tonight because Man City are playing in the FA Cup, which no one's going to watch because they may as well just give them the win now. But I will be on at 8 o'clock. I'm also doing 3 o'clock kickoffs on the Premier League on That's Football. I mean, there's not a good 12:30, so I'm just doing 3 o'clocks, which is normally me sipping tea, eating biscuits, and having a chat with you good people. Thanks everyone for watching, and I will speak to you all in a little bit. Salty Bridge, says Jonathan. Mate, I don't need to be salty. We're the biggest. And I don't think that really matters, but It's not. It's not about that. All I ever look to do for you is generate good content. And if that means seeking people out and then saying no, then they say no. But look, we move on. It's not the end of the world. I'm not one of these small lot who are desperate to be relevant, who will kiss ass. Don't need to, never have. We are what we are. We do what we do. It's not personal. We're not afraid to talk about anything. So let's keep doing what we do. And the power of it is you. So thanks everyone for tuning in today. I don't normally ask people to subscribe. Please subscribe, bottom right hand corner. Let's see how many we can get, and smash a like on the video if you've enjoyed it today. It just takes a click. We don't normally do that. Please do it. Thanks for watching.